At K-Blend, we believe the person underneath the coping is still worth reaching. But reaching them requires truth, not slogans, not pressure, and not pretending destructive behavior is harmless. That is why we created The Journey, From Control to Surrender, the book we have used while working with church leaders in the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and most recently in Pakistan, as they reach communities in crisis. For the first 10 people who call the K-Blend helpline and ask for The Journey, we will provide a free copy. Call 734-605-8500 and ask for The Journey.
Last week on K-Blend.
The doctors, no real support. There was still nothing that was helping it. I didn't know what to do to help her either, especially, not really understanding how she's feeling.
The story began with one sentence. You do not understand.
If you have anxiety, okay, take this. If you have bipolar, take this. And then you tell them like all of these things are not working. And then they're like, okay, well, basically I got deemed like this is a complicated case. They don't know what to do. I felt kind of helpless. And it's not that I didn't feel like anybody cared. I felt like nobody understood exactly what I meant when I explained how I felt. And my mom tried to help me as much as she could, but she didn't know what else to do. I mean, we've exhausted all options, and in and out of jail, in and out of the hospital. There was no helping me. You couldn't really do anything to help me if you didn't understand.
You would hear that several times a day. You just don't understand. You just don't understand. It's like, I'm trying to understand, but...
And once that belief takes over, separation starts to feel necessary. If no one understands me, then I have to protect myself from everyone, even the people trying to help me. And once a person enters survival mode, almost anything can be justified, because emergency sets aside the rules. That is when a family begins to lose access. Love is still there, help is still being offered, but the suffering person is now living behind a survival wall.
Point probably when she was 14, it seemed like she was almost having like a nervous breakdown. I took her to a mental health hospital. She stayed there for almost a week, and from 14 until we came here, she tried several different medications, maybe 20 or more. Different hospitalizations. She got into a lot of trouble. Been to jail several times. She spent a birthday in jail. Honestly, I didn't think that she would make it into her 20s. I thought she'd be dead before then.
That is the terror of watching a child slip away. And when families live there long enough, it is easy to start writing the person off. What if some of the behavior families are ready to give up on is actually coping? Not healthy coping, not harmless coping, not coping that should be excused, but coping that tells us something important. Underneath the behavior, the person is still trying to survive.
Alcohol is always the thing that was readily available, I guess, and it was easy to turn to that because it made me feel, I guess, no anxiety, confident. It was almost like it was my friend, basically, which is sad to say, but I turned to that since I was 12, and ever since then, up until about 2022, I kind of just like lost myself, I think. I just felt disconnected from reality and disconnected from myself. I felt alone, and going through high school, went through a lot of different things, but I think it was mainly the trauma that really kind of made me bury myself. That was where it all started, is just as a child feeling alone and just feeling this like inner emptiness from the things that I experienced, and I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to process my emotions in the correct way, so I turned to alcohol, and it didn't help me. It just kind of numbed me in a way.
But survival does not stay contained. At first, It separates a person from family. You don't understand me. Then it separates them from honesty. I just have to get through today. Then it starts separating them from God. And when spiritual intimacy fades, the person does not only lose faith in God, they begin losing touch with themselves.
I think angry at God was one of the biggest things because I always questioned, if there actually is a God, why are things like this for me? Like, why me? And I'd always ask, how is that fair? Like I said, if there is a God, why would my life end up this way? Why would I have to suffer? And then I kind of just stopped believing in God and lost touch with that and lost touch with myself. So I didn't believe in anything. I didn't even believe in myself.
That is the brink. When coping has not only failed to save the person, it has started teaching them how to disappear. For Estacia, the first sign of hope was not a speech, a promise, or a perfect plan. It was the moment fight mode quieted enough for her to realize, someone actually sees me.
I think initially I was mind blown because it was almost like a shock to have providers actually care about your well-being and not just say that they care. I think the best way to explain it is this place treated me like I was family. The way you guys approached helping me, it was a shock from being thrown medications to what are your needs, how can we help you, having somebody guide me through every step, making sure I'm comfortable. It was a really different experience and it finally felt different than anything I've ever been offered. And it felt real and it definitely surpassed my expectation of what this was going to be like. And it felt like I was finally being listened to.
Relationship makes treatment possible. When fight mode begins to quiet, the first few treatments can touch places that years of therapy, arguments, pleading, and pills may never have reached.
It was the fourth treatment, and I just felt like my entire outlook on life changed. My thought process went from, if I have a negative thought, it's immediately like corrected by a positive thought. I started doing different things that I don't normally do. Stepping outside of my comfort zone, talking to strangers, I don't do that. Riding my bike, just doing different things that I don't normally do. It mostly was just the thoughts of like appreciating the small things. I don't want to say euphoria, but it's almost like a euphoria of like you walk outside, the sun is shining and you're like, today's gonna be a good day. I appreciate all these things. And it's like a self-realization of like, I'm happy to be alive and I made it this far. And it's like, wow, I felt like a completely different person.
Maybe
different.
Maybe instead of euphoria, is it just living in the moment?
Yeah, it was almost like I dissociated for so long that it felt like I came back into my body and it felt like I was here again. I wasn't just...
You were present.
Surviving, I was here and my body connected to myself.
When one person in a family has been living behind the survival wall, the whole family has been surviving too. Before we hear Estacia talk about purpose, we need to hear Jodi describe what the family had been carrying. Because hopelessness had not only taken hold of Estacia, it had spread through the house.
Was she spiraling and feeling hopeless? So were we. It was a battle for all of us. Depressing, feeling hopeless, not knowing what to do, or, are we ever going to come out of this? Is she ever going to have a normal life? And are we ever going to have a normal life? Not knowing. And it is hopeless. And when you go to different doctors and different therapy and different medications and you try all these things and you get nothing. And even like with Estacia, she would, go to a therapist and go through all these things that she's been through. And it's like, okay, now what? I've told you, she would say, I don't want to tell anybody else. I don't want to tell anybody else the same thing that I've been saying because it doesn't work. Nothing is working.
Estacia was not simply feeling a little better. A family that had been organizing itself around fear was beginning to see her return. And once she was no longer spending all her energy just surviving, something else started to surface. Purpose.
In a way, carrying on the legacy, I see myself, I guess, being a voice for people that have gone through the same thing as me, not only in this type of situation, but also with addiction, recovery, as well as I'm going to write a book. I'm working on it right now. It's taken a while. I think really I'm just going to be a positive influence on other people once I fully work through what I need to work through, and just be the light that lifts everybody up. I think I'm going to be somebody that people will remember for the things that I've said and stuff like that. I just want to be somebody that people remember when I'm not here.
Mom, how does that make you feel? You're smiling over there.
Yeah, I see it. I told her, you didn't experience all these traumatic, horrible things for no reason.
Right.
You went through all these things so that you can share with other people and help them get through it. And
Someone listening has a spouse, child, friend, or relative that they have started to write off. They may look rebellious, unreachable, or like they do not care anymore. Estacia and Jodi's full interview with Dr. Krista is available now at www.mykblend.com. And if this story sounds like someone you love, K-Blend begins with a consultation, not a rushed appointment, not minutes on a clock, but a real conversation about what is happening underneath the symptoms, underneath the coping, and underneath the fight mode. Because relationship makes treatment possible, call the helpline at 734-605-8500. What you just heard is why these conversations matter. There is a kind of authority that only comes from passing through the deep and dark and returning with something real to say to those still trapped there. Welcome to the K-Blend Show. Honest conversations about God, suffering, survival, recovery, and the realities people face when life falls apart. K-Blend is a state-licensed medical practice, and this program is educational in nature. When we reference scripture, history, or older writings, we do so to help interpret the human condition, not to replace individualized medical care, mental health treatment, emergency services, or pastoral counseling. We use these sources alongside responsible medical understanding because human suffering did not begin in modern medicine, and biology is not the whole story. At K-Blend, we do not see people as broken so much as stuck in the wrong mode for too long. Our goal is not merely temporary relief, but restored capacity, connection, and sustainable change. We care for the whole person, medically, emotionally, relationally, and, when appropriate, spiritually. This is the place where people who have hit rock bottom begin to break the power of isolation, tell the truth about pain, and call back to others still trapped where they once were. Today, we continue that conversation with a new guest. Here is your host, Krista Kleider.
Much for joining us today and coming to share your story.
Hello, Krista. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So who are we? As many of our listeners will recognize, K-Blend, we are no strangers to WMUC. We've actually been advertising partners for some time on the air, and we are now launching our own radio show called K-Blend. That's the letter K, B-L-E-N-D. And thank you so much for watching again. We air every Saturday at 1 o'clock. And so today, what are we going to be talking about? Well, on the K-Blend show, we talk about real emotions, raw emotions. We don't put on masks. We don't pretend. Baylee, I know that you're in theater, but this is not a performance. So these are real struggles, real situations that people have been dealing with, real depression, real anxiety, real pain. But there's also real hope and real healing that they have found in K-Blend. And today, Baylee is going to be sharing her story. So if you're listening today and you would also like to watch us on the video recording, please visit www.mykblend, that's M-Y, the letter K, B-L-E-N-D. Click on the view live stream and you can actually watch the video. So please join us there on our website to also see the video while we share this show with you today. Before we get started though, Baylee, you have been with K-Blend since December of 2022. So through that time, I've seen you at your best. I've seen you at your worst. I want to start though with the Baylee before you came to K-Blend. So if you could share with the audience a little bit, keeping in mind that we know that there's somebody listening out there who really needs to hear your story because I'm sure that they're going to relate to it. And so let's start with wherever you would like to start at the beginning, your childhood, how you felt before you came to K-Blend, what led you to reach out to us for help.
I've always been an anxious person. Honestly, I think it was when I was a teenager that we finally decided I need to go on some sort of medication. And I went to, I finally started to see a doctor, tried different medications, each of them having different side effects, had them changed. Eventually, they would have, side effects leading to me having something else. So I then developed depression because that was, another side effect. And I mean, that's just not who I was. So then I had to be on medication for depression as well as anxiety. And then I just ended up going through all these mood swings because I was on medication for anxiety and depression. And it was not fun. So then I had to be on a mood stabilizer, which, yeah, that was just, I remember, in short, I tried pretty much almost every medication under the sun. I went from everything anxiety to depression to meltdowns to weight gain to weight loss to stomach issues to part of my stomach dying. I had to go to Cleveland Clinic. And then I was like, something's got to give. And then probably, one of the biggest, one of the worst things happened in my life. I faced major grief for the first time in my life. And this was in July of 2022. My grandfather, who was my father figure, passed away. I don't have a real father. Well, I do have a father. I shouldn't say that. But he plays no part in my life. So my grandfather was always my father figure. And when he passed away from cancer is a son of a gun. Grief, well, you never know how you're going to face grief. And let's put it this way. Having this already burden of anxiety, depression, these stomach issues, and just these, well, not something else I talk about very much, but, well, then just going through a breakup. I just remember sitting in my bed, doing nothing for most of the day, and feeling like I just couldn't do anything with my life. I felt like I wasn't going to go anywhere. I felt like everything was just sinking. But the only thing I felt like I did have, well, I had my family, of course. They were with me, but they were starting to feel like they were helpless. They didn't feel like they felt like they tried everything. They loved me, but they felt like that wasn't enough, and they just didn't know what to do. I had my faith. I've been a Catholic my whole life. I love altar serving. I do it every weekend. And that hour that I have with the Lord at our masses when I get to altar serve is a blessing to me. It brings me great peace. But then it seemed like when that hour was over, I just went back into this despair. And then I would just crawl back into bed. So then it just became enough. My mom, by happenstance, I don't know how. I think it was the Lord. It was the Lord at work. She came across a blend, and she ended up calling. Somebody answered, gave their testimony, and she said to me, we need to give this place a try. And I was like, whoa, this place is 5 hours away, and we'd have to drive, I don't know how often, maybe once a week, maybe once every few weeks, maybe once a month. I don't know how often, but that's, and that's a lot of money. But I don't even know if it's going to work. I don't even know that's how this works. And my mom told me, it's an intravenous, and which means, they poke you, you'll figure out the process. But at first I was a little scared. I ended up coming for my first infusion. And let me tell you, you know what? It was amazing. But you know what? It's dependent on faith. It's not just, I'm going to come in, I'm going to put my faith. And you know what? You all are amazing here. You are. But it's not just, I'm going to put my faith in the ketamine. It's also, I'm going to put my faith in God. You need to have faith. You need to pray. You need to know that God's at work at this, because he is. Every time I come in for my infusion now, I've been doing this for over 3 years. I always think God is with me, and he is. And I know I'm kind of all over the place. I apologize. But 3.5 years later, or however long it's been, I'm not in bed every day. I've gone from being a part-time aftercare teacher. The next year, I went to being a part-time to kind of full-time preschool aide. And now I'm a preschool teacher. I never thought I would have been there. 3 years ago, I didn't think I would be there. And in addition to that, I work for our church as not only a continued altar server, but I'm also our sacristan, and I'm also a cantor once a week. I didn't think I'd be doing that either. I didn't think I'd be a cantor because I didn't think I'd have the guts to get in front of a congregation and show my voice, because I was a shy person. Yes, I know I'm in theater. Yes, I know I can get up on the stage because I've been doing it ever since I was 4 years old as a dancer. But I didn't think I could sing. Speaking is a different thing because you have a script in your hands. But singing takes guts, because I'm a very critical person of myself. I really am. And I've always been critical of my singing voice. So when somebody kind of instilled that confidence in me and said, you know what? I want you to do this. We kind of need you to do this. I kind of said, okay, I'm going to give it a try. But if you want to throw tomatoes at me afterward, go ahead. And I did. And you know what? I'm now kind of another member of another parish. And I cantor every weekend there. I altar serve there too. I altar serve at 2 parishes. Let's put it this way. You have to have trust in the Lord. There's going to be a lot of storms in your life. There's going to be a lot of mountains to climb. I've certainly had to climb a lot of mountains, and I'm still learning that you just need to stop and remember he's always there. Sometimes you just need to take that deep breath and remember he's not going to abandon you. Even if that means stopping and saying, Lord, help me, he's there. He's always going to be there. And if you're afraid to come have an infusion because it might be a needle poke, or you're not sure what you're going to face, because sometimes you might see some things during your infusions, just think, the Lord is with you.
Baylee, that is an amazing testimony. And I know that you weren't looking directly at me through most of that, but I had the biggest smile on my face because I'm so proud of you where you are today. And I've had the honor of watching you grow over the last couple years and seeing you just completely blossom. And, you spoke so eloquently describing how K-Blend is just a tool in your tool belt. It is just one more thing that we use to get you on that road to recovery from depression and anxiety. But we know that the ultimate physician and healer is the Lord Jesus Christ. Yes. So thank you so much for sharing that testimony. And there will be more here in just a few minutes right after this commercial break. Thank you so much.
7 months ago, I had plans to kill myself about 3 times in that month.
Scott had been dealing with anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation for over 50 years. Then he found out about K-Blend.
My best buddy got me into K-Blend, and I told him, there's no way you can fix me. I'm unfixable. And John and Krista assured me that they can help me.
John and Krista Kleida of K-Blend use their proprietary and highly personalized ketamine infusion plan to work like a sledgehammer to break the chains of bondage to anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, PTSD, and other mood disorders. Call the K-Blend helpline at 734-605-8500.
My experience with K-Blend, such a loving environment, just fantastic.
K-Blend can help you too. Call the K-Blend helpline at 734-605-8500.
Thank you so much for joining us at the K-Blend Show again. Remember that you can see the video live stream if you go to www.mykblend, that's the letter K, blend.com, mykblend.com, or you can give us a call at 734-605-8500. If you listen to the first segment of this show, I pray and I hope that something that Baylee shared with us today really touched your heart. And it might be you or maybe somebody that you know, but somebody out there. We know God has led us to do this radio show for one reason alone, and that is to not only share his beautiful love with the world, but also we know that people need help out there with their mental health conditions. And we are here to share one of the amazing tools that God is using with hundreds of patients at the K-Blend program. So Baylee, thank you so much again for joining us today. So let's jump into a little bit more, because you started off so strong, and I know the momentum of this show is not going to end. So let's start off. I want to hear more about the Baylee before K-Blend and then the Baylee now. So you shared a little bit about what you're doing, but how are your thoughts? How are those? You talked about the emotional outbursts that you had before. Share with us how those feelings have transcended through the use of K-Blend.
I just remember before coming to K-Blend, I couldn't get a grasp of my emotions at all. There was no rhyme or reason. There was no understanding them. I just remember there was no such thing as grasping them. It was just a mess. And at one point, I don't remember if it was like 2 years in or a year and a half or whatever, but it was just kind of like I woke up and I felt this sense of kind of power over something. But I felt like I could kind of ease my way into understanding some of my emotions a little bit. And I could kind of take a step back and think, okay, well, maybe I'm feeling this because, cause and effect sort of thing. Sometimes I will still have these outbursts. Mm-hmm. I'm not perfect. I'm a human. I'm autistic. I'm a female. But I'm built not perfect. But none of us are built perfect.
Amen.
Okay, we're gonna have.
That's right.
We're gonna have imperfections, but I've come a long way. I believe I have, and at least I'm now able to say, well, you know what? I'm angry. This emotion is very heavy, and I think I'm angry because I'm overtired. I overdid this. I might need to take a step back. I might need to say no for once. And I'm finally able to do that. You know what? In the past, I've just kind of been a yes person. I've done that to the point where I've been burning the midnight oil. I've kind of been able to grow and have been able to say no. It's hard sometimes, but I'm able to do it now. And I'm able to take a breath and say, this is kind of hard, but I can do it. And then later I'm able to say, you know what? It was good that I did that because it's good for my body. An example is I was actually asked to be in another play. It was an honor because you know what? The last play I was in, I was actually the lead role. And you know what? It was an amazing play. The play was called Silent Sky. And I played the role of Henrietta Leavitt. She was like an amazing astronomer who had all these findings in astronomy. And oh my goodness, it was an amazing play. This medal I'm wearing was a medal that I received for my acting skills. And my goodness, was it an honor to get it. But for that performance, I was then asked by the person who ended up pretty much founding the theater, putting the theater together. He was going to direct another play. And he asked me, do you want to be in this play? Your performance was amazing. I was the youngest actor, and every other actor had been in acting ever since I was in preschool. So for me to be a part of that play was amazing. I remember I said yes because I had never been asked by this person. And I mean, it was an honor. And I'm juggling preschool, being a preschool teacher. It's my first year, my sacristan work, and just getting enough sleep. So then it's a week in, and I'm realizing that I'm not getting enough sleep. I'm exhausted. I have to, realizing that there's a few more conflicts I'm having to add to the list of rehearsals. I'm thinking, you know what, I might not be able to do this. And I'm sad because I'm like, I was asked to do this, and I don't want to let the director down, but I'm starting to think I might need to give this up. But then the director actually texts me and he says, it sounds like you got a lot going on in life. Are you sure you want to do this? There's a lot of other plays that you can be in. And I say to him, I got to be completely honest. I might need to give this up. And he says, I understand. And he goes on to tell me a whole bunch of stories, which I won't go into. But long story short, it took a lot for me to say I might need to drop out. But if it would have been me a few years ago, I would have said, nope, I'm doing this. I'm doing this. I'm doing this play on top of everything else I'm doing, because that's just how I am. I would have continued to burn the midnight oil. I wouldn't have realized I'm exhausted. And then I would have gone into emotional turmoil. And you know what? My family would have faced demonic Baylee, which would have been horrible. Oh my goodness, yes. But I realized it's too much. I realized I'm exhausted before going into emotional turmoil. And I'm glad. I went through a little bit of a grieving process of, you know what? I might be giving up theater for a while. It might be just this play. It might be for a while. It could be 40 years. But you know what? I'm moving on with life. That's what I'm doing. Because priorities are family, work, and my growing religious life. And you know what? I as much as I love theater, I might need to give it up for a little while. But it's the realizing that I need to say no sometimes. And I'm glad that I'm able to realize things before my emotions take over. So
That's amazing, Baylee. Thank you again so much for sharing. So, Baylee, what do you feel is so healing about K-Blend specifically? Is there any one particular thing that you feel is so therapeutic, whether it's the treatment itself, whether you feel that it's the environment, whether you feel that it's just knowing that you're about ready, your brain is going to get the great reset? What do you think is so special about these treatments?
I gotta say it's all of the above. Coming here, it's a wonderful environment, relaxing, it's peaceful. I trust all of you. I trust all of you with my life. So the fact that I can come here and I can say, okay, you help me. You can help me. The treatments, I'm able to just sit back, put my feet up. You have this nice relaxing music, and it puts me in this peaceful, almost spiritual type sense. And I'm able to just go into this nice, relaxing state and just let go.
The words let go. So when we get into the chaos of life and we talk about all the things that we have to do, right? You were just talking about work and the theater and doing all your church work, right? All of these things we try to grasp on and hold on and control all of these things around us that really we have no control over, right? Part of the amazing therapeutic part of the K-Blend program is learning the art of letting go. Much like that, you learned how to say no. You learned about yourself when enough is more than enough, right? Like, I can't handle anymore. This is all I can do. I do have to let go of theater. And so letting go of things in your life, that tight grasp that we have, it's almost like if you're driving in a car and you're going too fast, or somebody else's, maybe your mom's driving your car and you have the white knuckles, right? You're hanging on to the dashboard and you're so scared, right? That's what we try to do in life. We try to hang on to all these little things. Do they really define who we are? Do they really make that big of a difference in our life? Or are we holding on to things that maybe just disappoint us, overwhelm us, frustrate us, stress us out? And so I know theater is a great outlet for you, letting your personality be creative and getting out. But I also know that your church work is so, so important to you. You share that with me all the time, helping with funerals and, helping your priest. Those are so, so critical for who Baylee is, right?
Mhm.
Share with us a little bit more about where do you see yourself in 5 years then? Do you feel that you have hope in your life? Do you feel like that you have a bright future now, where before it sounded like you were just consumed with sitting in your bed and unable to think about having a future? How do you feel now?
Oh, most certainly. There's most certainly hope. The growth that I've had just over the past few years is substantial. I'm amazed at how far I've come. The fact that I've gone from just laying in bed to becoming a teacher. And now I'm actually thinking of pursuing the religious life sometime in my future. I don't know when. It would be when my family passes on, because I need to be there for them. So we're looking at probably 20 years or so in the future. But the fact that I'm thinking of something like that, and I don't know where I could be. I could be somewhere in this state. I'm actually thinking, hey, if I end up somewhere in a different country, that's okay. It's wherever God takes me.
Amen. That's amazing. That is polar opposite of the Baylee that I first met back in 2022. When I know that getting even out of your house was a hard thing for you to do, and now you're talking about another country. That's amazing. Hopefully someplace warm, right? So
Maybe.
wow, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much for listening to the Caitlin Show. We're going to be back in just a few minutes with more of Baylee's story. But if you have any questions, please give us a call. 734-605-8500. Again, that's 734-605-8500. Also visit us at www.mykblend.com. We'll see you in just a few minutes.
This is Nate talking about his K-Blend success on the Home and Health Show.
3 weeks ago, I would have been sitting here, I'd have been fidgety and not been able to speak clearly. Now I feel like I could face the world. The fears are gone, like the chains are broke.
Nate had tried just about everything to get his depression and anxiety under control, but the medications and therapy weren't working. Then he tried K-Blend. Proprietary K-Blend acts like a sledgehammer on treatment-resistant mood disorders like anxiety, depression, PTSD, OCD, even chronic pain.
If you tried everything else, why not try this? You went down that path before, why not go down this one?
Call the K-Blend helpline at 734-605-8500 and talk with the K-Blend experts about how this miraculous treatment can break the chains of your mood disorder or chronic pain.
If there's a light at the end of the tunnel for me, I know there's a light at the tunnel for others.
Call 734-605-8500. Call the K-Blend helpline at 734-605-8500 and talk with the K-Blend experts. For years now, you've listened to testimonies from other WMUZ listeners about the miraculous effects of K-Blend on
PTSD, I'm bipolar, I have anxiety, I have depression.
I was actually diagnosed bipolar. There was a time I was taking probably 30 to 45 pills a day.
I've been dealing with depression for about 2.5 decades. Depression and anxiety. I've been in and out of hospitals, and that's usually because of a suicide attempt.
But you're still suffering. Don't wait any longer. With this special offer from K-Blend, now is the time to contact John and Krista at 734-605-8500.
There were a lot of nights where I would go to sleep and I would just hope that I just didn't get up the next day, to be honest with you.
I've tried pretty much everything that you could think of. I was diagnosed with severe depression, severe anxiety, bipolar disorder. I wasn't able to do daily tasks. I would just lay in bed for days. Definitely has not just changed my life, but saved my life.
K-Blend acts like a sledgehammer on treatment-resistant mood disorders like suicidal ideation, anxiety, depression, OCD, PTSD, and on chronic pain.
I started noticing a difference, even just after the first treatment. After the third treatment, it was a very, very big difference.
Break the chains of your mood disorder or chronic pain and get real and lasting relief with K-Blend. Get on the road to real recovery by calling the helpline at 734-605-8500.
Welcome back to the Caitlin Show. I am Dr. Krista Kleider, your host for today, and I am with Baylee, our awesome guest, a current patient at Caitlin. Baylee, you've been a current patient with us since December 2022. So thank you so much again for coming today and sharing your story with us today. Now, you mentioned in the beginning part of the show that before coming to K-Blend, you experienced the loss of your grandfather. He was your father figure in your life. You were extremely close to him, and I'm so sorry for your loss with him. But I know that after knowing you for several years now, that you've experienced some pretty close calls with your grandmother and your mother who have experienced medical conditions that have been life or death as well. How have you learned to cope with that same situation, nearly identical of having a sick loved one? How do you feel that you handled the current situations versus before K-Blend?
It's difficult because I think of what used to be. You know, I remember, let's just put this as an example. My mom brought up just the other day how, you know, I'm making so much money now as a teacher, and if I want, I could go on a vacation. Well, it kind of made me sad because it's not the same. I can't go on a vacation without my family. It's not the same. There was an incident, you know, she used to actually drive me. At one point, you know, she actually lost all of her feeling in her leg, her driving leg, the leg that would operate the pedals. And she said, I'm not going to be able to drive you down here. And I said, well, I'll try driving, okay? It's fine, you know. So she got into the passenger seat, and I said, okay, you know, I got this, it's fine. And she said, I'm not going to be able to sit in the passenger seat. It's just, this doesn't feel right. You're going to have to take me home. I was tempted to cancel my appointment, but I was due for a treatment. And she said, you got to go. You got to go on your own. You can do it. I was terrified out of my mind. I just remember thinking, I can't do it. She's like, you can do it. You call me or I'll call you, one or the other, every hour if we need to. And so you know what? I remember, you know, I was teary-eyed a few times. I remember even one of the biggest things was the brights on our car, for whatever reason, were really bright. And so people kept flashing me. And the brights were on. So I kept getting really anxious. So there were just these little things, you know? It was kind of like a test of faith. Of like, okay, I'm going to turn around. Nope, I didn't turn around. I made it. I made it here. I made it. And I realized it right then and there. I made it. I made it, and everything's okay. And from right then on there, I realized I could do it. And that was a big step right there. I realized I had taken a big step. I could drive by myself downstate. Now I have to do it every time, unfortunately, because my mom has to stay home with my grandmother because, well, not safe for her to be home alone.
Real quick, Baylee, just so our listeners know, we're not talking about a 15, 20-minute drive. How long do you drive?
I drive 5 hours to get
5 hours. 5 hours for our listeners to get to K-Blend for us.
Yes.
And we are so blessed to have her. Praise God that you're here with us today. Praise God that you're able to come and share that on a radio show. I mean, I am just completely blown away after knowing you for just a couple short years here, where you were when we first met to where you are now. How do you feel? What feels different today than the Baylee of yesterday?
Well, I just think of how much more secure I am today, and how in the past I was unsure. I felt like hanging on. I was uncertain of my future. I remember I had done, you know, let's put it this way. COVID, it didn't help. I mean, I didn't have COVID at all during the COVID lockdown, but the cabin fever that I had was not, you know, I didn't, it threw me into this depression. And then I was kind of, you know, I was a social butterfly. So having everything closed down, not being able to go to college and having to do it remotely made it hard. And then on top of it, losing my grandfather. So all that thrown together, I remember I was doing online courses and I just broke down, burned out. That was tough. And that was just kind of when I had to I kind of gave up on doing my online courses. I had to take a break. And that's when I just kind of eased out of things and ended up laying in bed. And then I just didn't know where I was going to go from there. I was like, am I ever going to get a job? But I didn't have that motivation. But I was happy to go to church. I started going Saturdays and Sundays. And then, I started coming out to K-Blend, and I realized just how strong my faith was. It's not just about the treatment. You have to have faith with the treatment. My faith grew, and I remember attending church as much as I can. I remember my faith growing. I remember my calling growing. And just finding more ways to pursue it. And not only that, but my motivation started to come back. And I realized, I need to start getting out there. I need to do things. And, I also had the theater. Not just going to mass, but yes, I had the theater that I like to look forward to. But I had that, like I said, I had that motivation that I needed to start my life. I needed to get back out there. I needed to look for a job. And I did. Step by step. Like I said, I started as an aftercare person. And then they actually took me in under their wing and wanted me to be a preschool aide. They saw something in me. I really didn't see it in me, but they did. And then now this preschool director saw something in me even more, and they advocated for me to become a preschool teacher. And here I am. And my goodness, I'm still building that confidence in myself. It's building more and more. It's mostly rooted in faith, because a lot of times I have to turn to God and say, hey, am I doing the right thing? Is this all right? You know what? And he's the one who's guiding me on the right path. I just think of how, goodness, a few years ago, I was a mess. I didn't think I was going to go anywhere. And just how I felt like I was giving up on life. I didn't know, I honestly don't know if I would have been able to keep going. If I would have come here. I wouldn't have come here, because I mean it sounds hard, but my family says it. They say we're honestly would have been afraid for you, because we don't know what you would have done. But I say, you know what? I stand by my faith, because if it wouldn't have been for my faith, I don't know what would have happened. Yes, K-Blend was there to help me, but there's that faith. So it's like an aid. It's an aid. It's a tool.
That's right.
Like you said, and it's helped me to grow. It's even helped me to grow in faith. So they work hand in hand. Faith and K-Blend, they work hand in hand. They've helped me to grow as a person. My goodness, I'm climbing a mountain right now. I'm a first-year teacher, and there are times where I doubt myself. And you know what? I'm at that point right now where I'm kind of like, I'm getting over that steepness of that mountain, and I'm like, okay, I'm starting to get confidence in myself. I'm starting to see that I am a teacher, that I'm starting to get good at this. But it's also putting your mind on faith.
Yes, absolutely.
So, have faith.
Absolutely. And I am 100% positive, without a shadow of a doubt, that your kids in your classroom must absolutely love you to pieces. I'm sure that they do. And I'm sure that you're doing an amazing job. So thank you so much again for sharing all of your testimony from the beginning to now, all of the ups and the downs that you've had. The Baylee that I see today, you are confident. You are a ray of sunshine. I just see the light of Jesus coming through you. And I know that everybody that you encounter, that they can feel that with you. You are crazy smart. You come in here and you share some of the most amazing things that you're doing, being on stage in front of hundreds of people and having that lead role, and being in front of the kids in the classroom, being there in front of all the people that attend your church. You are doing amazing things, and I know that God is not done with you yet, and I am so honored again to be a part of your story. So thank you for coming today. Thank you so much for listening. We have really enjoyed this show. You can catch us every Saturday on 103.5 WMUZ at 1 o'clock. We're looking forward to having you back again. Give us a call at 734-605-8500. Again, that's 734-605-8500. If something that you've heard from Baylee today has really touched your heart, if you have questions about what K-Blend is, or maybe you just want to share your story with us, give us a call. You can also visit us at www.mykblend, that's M-Y, the letter K, BLEND.com. We're looking forward to hearing from you. Have a blessed day.
Previously
on K-Blend.
Tried to quit drinking on my own. I've tried to feel better on my own. My mom just had enough.
Sam was not trying to sound religious. She told truth about life when it falls apart.
I was lashing out. I tried to kill myself, and I have a young child, and I had a husband who loved me very deeply, and it would have destroyed my family. But the attempt was made, and I got put into a psychiatric hold, and I didn't know what to do when I came out. Nothing had changed. I still felt the same. I still wanted to be gone. It felt like I hit rock bottom.
Then Sam's mom found K-Blend.
Voices stopped. The negativity stopped. The impulses, the depression got better. The urge to drink felt better. I just felt better. I looked forward to my other treatments, even though it was scary and it's hard work. You have to learn how to let go. And it's a lot harder than it sounds to do. John and you coached me through it, and I ended up just letting go.
As we learn to live honestly, we are also being prepared to walk through the valleys life will bring.
Totally different person. My family notices, my friends, my colleagues. When I lost my husband recently in March, I've never felt pain like that before and figured there's nothing that could be done.
Sam had already begun to recover. But when this loss came, it struck the very places where life had started to become steady again. He was not only the man she loved, he had become a steady place for her daughter, a shelter in her recovery, and part of the life she had hoped for.
It was just me and my daughter till she was 9 years old because her father has a drug addiction, so we cut that out, and it's just been the two of us. It's the first man she's ever met that I dated. He became a great stepfather right away. They hit it off. Everything I ever wanted finally came true after being alone for so long. Marriage isn't perfect, but it was perfect for us. We really had a big stepping stone in my mental health. I couldn't have done it by myself. My family started to turn on me, but he didn't. He knew something was wrong. We just couldn't figure out what it was. I put him through the ringer, just like I did everyone else. He stuck by me and he helped me, trying to figure out what's wrong, how to fix it.
With a single phone call, everything changed.
They think he had some type of medical emergency and he ran into a tree on the way back to pick me up. And it was a fatal car accident. I got to the scene and I got instantly sick.
Sam describes the kind of shock that overwhelms the body, the mind, and the soul. And when the pain went deeper than she could imagine, she found herself slipping back into old ways of surviving.
I went into the shock. I can't remember anything except for just drinking. And I couldn't even get drunk. I was so emotionally upset. It was just like emotion that made me feel better just by doing it, because that's what I'm used to. When I'm happy, I drink. When I'm sad, I drink. When something's hard, I drink. If I celebrate, I drink. This was back in March, and then I had friends and family come stay with me for a couple months. They would take shifts about a week at a time and keep an eye on me because they were scared I was going to do something or resort back to who I was. And understandably so, I was really upset. I didn't talk much. It just was full of tears and drinking. I would wake up and I'd wake people up to me opening my drinks. I would drink all morning, all afternoon, sleep a little bit, drink some more. I stopped eating. I reverted back to my old behaviors. I couldn't take being alive during that. I've suffered loss. I lost my cousin to an overdose, my stepbrother to an overdose. My grandpa, who was like my dad, I lost 3 years ago. So we've been hit with loss after loss, but I've never felt one like this. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how I would live anymore without him. He was such a big part of my life and my daughter's life. And
But even in that collapse, something had changed. Sam recognized that if she was going to survive this kind of pain, she had to return to what had already begun to bring real healing.
To be honest, it took me right back to wanting to die because it was so traumatic. But, you know, I got my treatment. I slowed down. I got my reset, and I decided to start just giving it to God and praying. And I'm not a religious person, I would say. I'm spiritual. I believe in God. I just don't do the religious part of it, and I actually started going to AA, and so I've opened my spiritual awareness a little bit more.
K-Blend is about more than saying good things about God. It is about learning to encounter Him in the deepest and darkest places, where He becomes not a distant idea or a wish granter, but the true satisfier of the soul. And for those who want to understand how that healing is supported clinically, Sam's full conversation with Dr. Krista also explores the medical side of trauma, shock, and how treatment is carefully applied at K-Blend. To hear the full story, visit www.mykblend.com.
I want to help others that have the same problem I have, that know they're not alone, and there is something that works that's not conventional. And it's probably, you're not going to believe it until you try it, but there is something. You don't have to be alone. You don't have to wait until you want to kill yourself. You don't have to sit and suffer every single day with the voices and the negativity and the sadness.
What you just heard is why these conversations matter. There is a kind of authority that only comes from passing through the deep and dark and returning with something real to say to those still trapped there. Welcome to the K-Blend Show. Honest conversations about God, suffering, survival, recovery, and the realities people face when life falls apart. K-Blend is a state-licensed medical practice, and this program is educational in nature. When we reference scripture, history, or older writings, we do so to help interpret the human condition, not to replace individualized medical care, mental health treatment, emergency services, or pastoral counseling. We use these sources alongside responsible medical understanding because human suffering did not begin in modern medicine, and biology is not the whole story. At K-Blend, we do not see people as broken so much as stuck in the wrong mode for too long. Our goal is not merely temporary relief, but restored capacity, connection, and sustainable change. We care for the whole person, medically, emotionally, relationally, and, when appropriate, spiritually. This is the place where people who have hit rock bottom begin to break the power of isolation, tell the truth about pain, and call back to others still trapped where they once were. Depression and trauma can leave people feeling trapped, like the fog will never lift.
I was wrestling with depression and anxiety, some trauma that happened to me in my home.
After suffering strokes, Susan struggled with balance.
I had a very difficult time processing. I really needed help. After I had the strokes, I would drag my foot and my balance was off.
The first treatment changed everything.
First day, I felt the fog starting to clear. I feel so good now. When can I have the next one? And I'm like, am I supposed to wait? Or am I supposed to just go on? And that's where you guys come in. And my mom said, you are back.
Her husband remembers the moment her mother looked at him.
I looked at her mom, and her mom looked at me and said, we got our girl back.
We got our girl back. Stories like Susan's are why K-Blend exists. You can hear Susan's full story right now at kblend.com. And if you or someone you love is struggling, you don't have to face it alone. Call the K-Blend helpline, 734-605-8500. That's 734-605-8500. The K-Blend helpline is ready for your call.
At K-Blend, we believe the person underneath the coping is still worth reaching. But reaching them requires truth, not slogans, not pressure, and not pretending destructive behavior is harmless. That is why we created The Journey, From Control to Surrender, the book we have used while working with church leaders in the Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, and most recently in Pakistan, as they reach communities in crisis. For the first 10 people who call the K-Blend helpline and ask for the journey, we will provide a free copy. Call 734-605-8500 and ask for the journey.
I tried everything from medications to counseling. I've been hospitalized 3 times. I've been to rehab 3 times. Nothing seemed to work.
That is, until Estacia started K-Blend treatments. K-Blend acts like a sledgehammer on treatment-resistant mood disorders like suicidal ideation, depression, anxiety, PTSD, OCD, and chronic pain.
I have severe anxiety every day from the time I wake up, the time I go to sleep. So that was one of the big factors that I was able to tell, like, this is actually doing something. I was beginning to feel more confident in knowing that this treatment is going to do something for me, especially with my bipolar, because I'm constantly cycling. I'm always manic, and I noticed that helped me with my manic episodes.
You've been listening to The K-Blend Show with your hosts, John and Krista Kleider. Thank you for joining us. You can find out more about this revolutionary treatment at mykblend.com, or you can speak directly to a K-Blend expert by calling 734-605-8500. And join us each Saturday afternoon at 1 for more honest stories of healing and hope with The K-Blend Show on 103.5 FM WMUZ The Light. Detroit made, Bible strong.